The spring is here. You could see the pollen everywhere, but that means the Clemson spring game is just around the corner. This Saturday, the Tigers will take the field in Death Valley for the spring game. And it's not really a foregone conclusion these days that each team will have a spring game. In fact, we saw a lot of teams changing them around, canceling them. Ole Miss is going to have the Grove Bowl, which is going to sounds like more of a skills competition, which I don't know how interesting that will end up being. Other schools like Nebraska, Southern Cal, Texas, they've canceled their game entirely. And some have cited that, having these games are really just an opportunity for other teams to watch your players and decide who they want to tamper with and try to get to transfer. So they don't want to put that on TV. Meanwhile, Deion Sanders over at Colorado, he wants to make it more of a spectacle. And I think in a good way, Colorado and Syracuse were going to play a scrimmage against each other, something Coach Sweeney has vocally supported and something that I think is a great idea. But the NCAA blocked it for who knows what reason. I think in the future we'll see that maybe a Clemson Furman type scrimmage will be moved, type game will be moved to this scrimmage, and that might open up another slot during the season for a more appealing game. I think that'd be good for the sport, and maybe we'll see it. But for now, it's going to be Clemson versus Clemson. But the Tigers have some changes for this edition of the spring game as well. Namely, it's not going to be televised. So if you want to know how it went, you're going to have to either go or check out this YouTube channel and a whole lot of other Clemson media that I'm sure will give you some thoughts on it. I'll be sure to do that after the game. Speaking of that, before we dive in, don't forget to subscribe to this channel so you don't miss those videos or anything else Clemson sports. Be sure to subscribe and don't forget to like this video as well. I really appreciate it. So the way they're going to do it this year is they'll have one white team defense. They'll have one orange team offense. So they'll have the first teamers, second teamers. You'll probably see a whole lot of Christopher Vizzina. You'll see less walk-ons in theory, at least early. I think it could actually make for a better game. The score won't really matter. The score's not going to make a whole lot of sense because defense obviously can't really score barring a pick six or a scoop and score. They're going to try to sort of make up these rules that allow the defense to get some points. So they'll get 3 points on a missed field goal, 3 points for any sort of turnover on downs, interceptions, or fumble. They'll get 2 points for a 2-point conversion stop. And they'll get a point for either a missed PAT or a 3-and-out. It's going to be really, really hard for the defense to win a game with that. You don't get any points for a punt unless it's a 3-and-out. So score could be pretty lopsided. I don't know that really matters. Either way, I love the format. I think it's going to give us a really good opportunity to see a lot of players we want to learn more about. And so that's what I want to talk about. There's a handful of guys I'm really looking forward to seeing. So let's dive right in there. And I'll go sort of in reverse order of priority here. But the first sort of grouping of guys I'm really looking at is the trio of incoming transfers. And I'll start with Will Heldt. Clemson really needed a defensive end last year. I was really hopeful and kind of optimistic they'd add a defensive end through the portal last year. They chose not to. We heard on video, Chris Rumpf said they were happy with what they had, even after Adam Kisai left and kind of gave them the spot where they could have done it. They didn't. Instead, they moved Peter Woods to the edge. He was certainly fine on the edge, but not as elite, not dominant. And then he got hurt, and they were weaker on the inside without Woods there, and much weaker on the outside, whether he was there or hurt. Obviously, we saw the run defense against Texas was terrible, and that was just a continuation of what it was all year. So now this year, I really believe they fixed the problem by bringing in Will Heldt. It seems like a perfect fit, a perfect solution for a glaring weakness. Will Heldt was a great overall defensive end for Purdue, but he was especially good as a run blocker, run stopper, which makes sense because he's big wingspan, bigger guy. And I think it's a perfect fit. So not a ton of mystery to solve here that we're looking for this in the spring game. I'm just excited to see it. I'm just excited to see Parker on one side, Heldt on the other. Finally a pretty elite duo of defensive ends there. So that's one. Jeremiah Alexander is another transfer. I believe he'll be a linebacker. He was originally a 5-star. He was the top player in Alabama when he came out. he chose to go to Alabama and went to the Crimson Tide, moved to linebacker once he was there. He was originally a defensive end recruit, but he didn't play a whole lot, so we don't have a whole lot of tape. Very little production at the college level. So we know the raw talent's there. Clemson obviously wanted him despite the lack of production in Alabama. It'll be interesting to see where he fits in. I would think in true 3 linebacker looks. He's kind of the third linebacker. Obviously, you have Sammy Brown, Wade Woodaz are a pretty elite duo. So he's the third guy. Is he going to be primarily a blitzer? We might get a little gauge for that. So that's one guy to look out for. And then Tristan Smith may not be the most important guy on the roster just because you have 3 stars at wide receiver starting ahead of him. But he's a big depth guy. And we've already heard from Garrett Riley that he's flashed in camp. He comes from Southeast Missouri State. He had great PFF grades there, and some pretty good stats and production to go with it. But of course, that's a much different level. And we've seen transfers in basketball from lesser conferences sometimes work out to be great, sometimes not. You have to just see how that translates to a higher level of competition. This will give us a little look at that. I think he could be a real weapon, back shoulder throws, kind of jump balls, or just kind of high over the middle. In the red zone, kind of like a tight end. Jake Brenningstool, the tight end, who was a great receiver, he's gone. So maybe Tristan Smith has a little bit of a niche role there too. I think it's a great addition. I was really excited about it, and he'll always kind of have a special place as Clemson's first legitimate impact transfer that maybe is what plays a role in getting Clemson back to championship contention at the highest level, national championship contention. That is, obviously they won the AC last year. And so those are 3 guys just to kind of start the conversation. And then sort of a pendulum swing to go back to elite high school recruiting. They did add one really, really elite high school recruit in this class, and this true freshman, Amare Adams, from South Florence, South Carolina. He comes in, he chose Clemson over Georgia and South Carolina, so SEC local schools he could have went to. He stayed in state and went to Clemson. It's a big win on the recruiting trail. He's not going to start this year at defensive tackle because you've got Peter Woods, who thankfully can move back inside. You got Capehart, who thankfully came back. You have Stephylan Green, who was awesome last year. Those guys are, as long as they're healthy, should be sort of the top 3. But given what we've been hearing about how good Amare Adams has been and how he's looked, saying he's freaky athletic, saying he has some of the power of a Dexter Lawrence type, maybe he could carve out a bit of a role this year, especially as the year progresses. And it's really not even about this year. I want to see him just, if this guy's potentially the next superstar, the next Peter Woods type, let's get a look at it on Saturday. So that's a guy I'm excited to see. Another one kind of in that same vein is redshirt freshman Christian Betancur. He's a tight end out of Illinois who put up insane, prolific pass catching numbers as a tight end. Now, he was almost like a wide receiver. When I watched his film, it was mostly split out wide, so it makes sense that he needed a red shirt, figure out the blocking, figure out a kind of a complex position at the college level. But now he's had that year. Now Brenningstool, as I mentioned, is off to the NFL. So could he get in the mix? I think I'm actually really high on Olsen Pat Henry. Pat Henry actually had a better PFF grade than Brenningstool because he was such a better blocker. So I feel pretty good about Pat Henry kind of owning that starting job and doing well with it as a well-rounded tight end. But beyond him, Josh Sapp, he's a good pass catcher, but he can improve as a blocker. He needs to. Could Betancur be the 3 guy? Him and Banks Pope, really? I would think Betancur could be the 3, or even if Sapp doesn't improve as a blocker, he could by the end of the year be a 2. I just think even if it's not this year that he plays a huge role, I think in a year or 2, he could be a real star, one of the better tight ends in the nation. So I'm excited to see him get a glimpse of that future. And then there's 2 guys who kind of stand out above the rest, who I'm really, really excited to see, really interested to see how they look. And one of them in particular will play a huge role, or needs to play a huge role this season for the Tigers, and that's Adam Randall, a senior. He was the hype for him coming out of Myrtle Beach as a recruit was huge, and then seemingly every year, this time of year, it was this is his breakout year. He's healthy, or this is his breakout year. Just he's so athletic. Well, it was never the case. He always struggled to get open. He was, he just, I don't want to speak negatively of him, but I don't know if it was route running or what it was in that, but the guy never got separation. And because of that, he got passed up by 2 true freshmen last year, really fell down the depth chart. He didn't even have 200 receiving yards in total in the whole year. But then in December, when it seemed like, his Clemson career is kind of settling in as a disappointment, especially after that Georgia game where he played so poorly and was promptly replaced the next week by Bryant Westcott in the starting lineup. Well, in December against SMU in the championship game, he had the big 41-yard kick return that set up the game-winning 56-yard field goal. And then after that, there were some rumors, but never confirmed, that he would move to running back because Phil Maffa was hurt and Jay Haynes had torn his ACL. In fact, he did. And he only got 4 carries, but one of them was a 41-yarder. No one else had a carry over even 11 yards. That was the high, and that was the quarterback. And so they leaned on the pass pretty heavy. So I don't want to put too much stock into that one great play and the one great return. But we have some promise, and everything we're hearing is that the camp's going great. He's looked great. He's presumably the starter right now. He was a great blocker as a receiver. That was honestly the one thing he really did well, was he was really good blocking on the outside. Of course, there you're blocking cornerbacks, right? You're not blocking linebackers or defensive ends or whoever it may be. Much tougher assignment as a running back. But he's 6'2", he's 225. He should be able to handle that. I think he's got a really good shot to excel or at least be passable there. You would think he could be a pretty good pass catcher out of the backfield. How good could he be as a running back? That's what we want to get a look at. We haven't seen much of it. We saw 4 carries total in his career. One of them was a 41-yarder. So I'm excited to see him. I love Gideon Davidson would be another one. I really seeing both of them. I think that's a senior freshman duo that could be really exciting. And as much as on this channel, on various articles, I've practically begged for years for Clemson to take some impact transfers. And they could have done it at running back this year with Maffa leaving and Haynes injured, and who knows how healthy he'll be. He's out for spring. He won't play in the spring game. Jay Haynes, that is. But they didn't. And in this case, I kind of agree with it. I think it speaks well to Adam Randall's humility and his and the culture of the program that he was willing to change positions. He showed him enough that Clemson was willing to trust him and not replace him in the portal. He didn't leave in the portal because Clemson means a lot to him. So obviously, spring, the portal's still opening. That could obviously change. So, I'm speaking a little early here, but I kind of believe in it after 3 years of hype for Adam Randall and me never believing it at running back. I believe it. I think when he has the ball in his hands, he could be really explosive. He's big. He's hard to bring down. He just couldn't run routes well. And so you take that off of his plate, putting a lot of other things on his plate, like blocking in the backfield, which is certainly harder. But I just think this position suits him better. And we should learn a lot more. We should see more than 4 carries from him. So it'll be the most we've ever seen. And he's, a potential starter. So I think he's the one who, for this season, seeing what he does in the spring game is the most important and most impactful. But the one guy I think overall is the most important to keep an eye on, the one guy I want to see more than anyone else, and the guy I think will sort of be the highlight of the game, the guy who's going to be at the center of it all, given there's only one offense. I think he'll get a ton of snaps, a ton of opportunities, is Christopher Vizzina, or CV. This is a 3rd spring game, and he was atrocious in the prior 2. I mean, he had 2 picks in each of the prior 2, looked really bad. But you got to remember, this was a big-time recruit. He came in, was humble enough to redshirt. He's had a redshirt season and then a redshirt freshman season behind Klubnik. And in neither case did we see a whole lot of him, certainly not in meaningful snaps and really not a ton even in garbage time. So we don't know a ton about him. When we've seen him in the spring game, it's been bad. Now, reportedly, he's been getting snaps with the first team because Klubnik just has so much experience. It's kind of not really super valuable for Klubnik to be taking him. So they've given a lot to him, and he's told the media that that's been very helpful, and he feels like he's really taken some steps. This spring feels like it's been a strong spring. So let's see it. I don't think he needs to have some sort of incredible jaw-dropping game, but let's not have another game where he looks lost, where he has 2 interceptions. I think that would certainly raise some questions about, will he really be ready to be a viable backup if Klubnik misses a game or two? I think that's extremely important for this year. And then next year, do we have confidence that this guy with another year of development could be a quality starter, a starter that could lead Clemson to an ACC championship in 2026? I think those questions are unanswered, and I think we'll get a lot of information about that on Saturday. So those are the couple of guys, but especially Randall for this year and VZ for this year, but especially for next year, are the guys I'm really keeping an eye on. I'll be sure to have a video, possibly with a guest, to break down what we saw in the spring game. Final thing here before I sign out, I want to talk about Nick Davidson. Clemson, the basketball team, lost basically their entire roster between graduation and the transfer portal. Things were looking bleak, but they landed one of the best, maybe the best center in the portal with Nick Davidson from Nevada joining the Tigers. He's 6'10". He averaged nearly 16 points and 6.5 rebounds for Nevada for the Wolfpack last year. And he was pretty efficient doing it. He shot 37% from three. He's just kind of an all-around guy. He could shoot from the outside. He does most of his work on the inside, both rebounding and just, around the basket, kind of a true post guy. 238 pounds, 6'10". So he's someone who's, I think, as of now, I think he's the best player on the roster. Him and Dylan Hunter give you a guy who can score and rebound, a guy who can take care of the ball, run the offense, get some assists, and maybe Dylan could get 9-10 points a game. But Davidson right now is the best player on the roster. And I think he's the guy, that's the first domino you had to have fall is, okay, where are we investing the most money to get our kind of star? Okay, we got our star, we got our veteran leader. Now we can start filling in with some important starters and some important role players. But now you start feeling a lot more optimistic that this team next year could certainly avoid being a bottom feeder in ACC. So huge news there for Brownell and this basketball program. You really hate to have to do a full reset like this much. I think it's more a commentary on the sport than it is Clemson. It's not like Clemson's doing this every year. So I think that's really good news for the basketball program. But for now, all eyes on football with the spring game, and I'll be back with more to break it down after it happens. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and like this video. And as always, go Tigers.